welcome to Mourning Coffee, episode 2. Turn our music off here. Gotta do our little morning jam. Oh, morning jam? All right, there you go.
Good enough, right?
All right, so welcome. I am Brooke Carlock, the host of Mourning Coffee. I'm a grief educator. We do this on Sundays, and we just chat about grief and keep it honest and real and raw and sometimes funny and a little weird. Yeah, so I have the most special guest ever today. People have been asking for this interview the entire time that I have been doing all of my grief stuff. So with me today is Max. Hi. So Max is my son. If you have heard my story, then you have heard about Max before. If you are new here, so my story is that in a series of 18 months, I lost a bunch of people that I love. So first I lost my dad to a heart attack, and then my stepmom to suicide, overdose of pills and alcohol. And then my mom got cancer. And then the worst of all of those, my 10-year-old daughter, Libby, died in a car accident. And then my mom died of cancer. So all of that within 18 months, which that stuff happened to you too, because it was your grandparents and your sister. So we've been through a lot.
Yes,
we have. So we're going to focus on probably mostly the accident with Libby. Max was 18 years old and was driving the car when Libby was killed. And we'll let him kind of talk about that a little bit more. But seriously, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome.
I've heard a lot about how many people want me to be here.
Yes,
so.
You are like the number one question is everyone wants to know how you are doing and like what you remember and all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate you talking about it. And just to verify, I did not twist your arm to be here. You're not it's not undue suffering. He volunteered. He was totally fine with doing this. I was like, sure, I'll talk about anything. Max is very go with the flow. So yes, I did not. He volunteered. It was not like you have to come on my show. So yeah, I really appreciate it. All right. You ready to go? Oh, we need to talk about what we're drinking first. Yeah. Okay, so what are you drinking?
See if I can remember this. It's a combination of Swiss Miss and cappuccino.
Yes, French vanilla cappuccino. Yeah,
I didn't make it, but it's very good.
So it's like a cappuccino hot chocolate concoction. And I've got the standard protein coffee, like always, that I always drink. So if you guys want to drop a comment and let me know what you guys are drinking, if you're drinking anything while you're watching us here today, would love to know. And hopefully it's not tea like your dad.
Is that what he drank? Yeah.
Yeah, it's his brown water. Disgusting. Anyway, okay. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, ready as well. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so why don't we start with just share with us what you remember about the accident. I know this is going to be short.
Yeah.
Just talk us through how much you actually remember.
So it's going to be a bit of a disappointing answer. But the only thing I remember basically is I remember vaguely the idea that night I was on the phone with my dad talking to him about how my car's lights were dim and that the car seemed to be kind of shutting down or maybe the battery was dying. And then I woke up on the couch in our living room. So yeah, I don't have any recollection of the entire event, which we'll talk about it later, but that has genuinely made the process a lot easier to go through. If you don't have a memory of the traumatic event, it's hard to have a strong connection to the trauma. So
that's very deep. I like that. Do you remember picking Libby up from dance class?
Not specifically. It's I did it so often that it kind of all blends together. But
that's true. Okay, so do you want to share what you were doing on that night? Like why you were...
How much did you talk about this with Dad?
Oh, I don't think we talked about... Well, I don't remember, but anyway,
okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
You can...
So yeah, I mean,
we'll rehash it
I'm sure you
people.
know that my parents were divorced, which was fine. I didn't. This is a bonus answer. I don't begrudge anyone that it happened, and I'm sure it sucked for everyone involved, but everyone is happy now and amicable. So, but yeah, regardless, my parents were divorced, so I was, every other excuse me, every other weekend I would have to drive myself, my sister, and occasionally my brother to my dad's house. I don't remember why he wasn't going that weekend.
Because Grayson, you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Max's brother, Wednesday night was the visitation schedule. So they went Wednesday nights and then every other weekend.
Oh, yeah, right. It was on Wednesday.
Grayson was working at Sonic and took an extra shift at Sonic. So he was not in the car.
But yeah, I every Wednesday, I forgot it was every Wednesday. I would pick Libby up from her dance lessons, and then
tea is delicious. Yeah. Tea is terrible.
It's hot leaf water. But yeah, I would pick up Libby from her dance lessons, and then I would drive the two of us to my dad's house, and that happened every Wednesday. Just we would hang out for a few hours, and then I would drive home. And that particular Wednesday, I was driving on the usual route. I don't know if you talked about this with Dad either, but the route that we took us through a really dangerous intersection that I didn't know was as dangerous as it was until well after everything happened. So
yeah, we did come to find out, like I knew it was a dangerous intersection, but quite a few people had died near the same location because of accidents, because there is there's an auto auction. So there are a ton of trucks, like car carrier trucks, that just barrel through that part of town on that main road. Mm-hmm. And so if you're trying to cross over, it's really difficult to see the oncoming trucks. Yeah.
There's a hill, like we came in from, I guess, the east. And if you're coming from the east side on Lidditz Road, there's a hill on the left that you have to pull forward pretty far even to just be able to see the road. And even then, like that's someone's yard, and beyond that, it's a hill that has to be crested by anyone within, I think they said 100 yards of the actual intersection. So super dangerous. People flew down it all the time. The last time I went through there, there was another accident the last time I was there. Like there was something that happened. And they had a bunch of signs up now for, speeding that probably should have been there long ago.
Yeah.
But
at the time after Libby died, they added a lot of
a lot of warning
slow
signs.
Down, look both ways, warning, stop, that kind of stuff. Because it is such a difficult intersection. Okay, so you mentioned, really you remember then picking up Libby, but it was something you always did, so you didn't really think about it.
Blends together.
And then you remember the problems with your car.
Slightly.
And you slightly. Yeah. And then you just remember waking up on the sofa.
Yep.
Okay, so should I fill people in on what happened in between then, or do you just want to? Oh, let's start with you because this is about you. Okay. So, and then I can fill people in like what happened to you. But and if people have any questions, if there's anything you want to know or you want clarified, please drop a comment and we can answer questions too. So when you woke up on the sofa at our house, like, do you remember what you were thinking or feeling, or were you still messed up in the head?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was definitely still messed up. I don't actually know how many times I had woken up on the couch. But, the time I remember I woke up and I, like, weirdly enough, I didn't even think that something could have happened to Libby because I didn't remember that was the last thing I had done. I actually thought that when I heard my parents talking about something awful that I wasn't aware of, I thought it was like my partner. I thought something had happened to my partner. But then I eventually, I don't know if you noticed, I basically pretended I wasn't awake for a little while just so I didn't like scare anyone. And I eventually learned via essentially osmosis that it was, Libby that had passed away. But yeah, beyond that, I don't know anything other than what you've told me and what Grayson's told me and even what Hazel's told me. So name drop.
Oh, you can name drop. Yeah. Hazel is Max's partner.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Hazel.
Wonderful. Yeah, they might be in the chat.
Okay, so this might be a tough one, but when you realized that Libby had died, because this is a grief channel, so what did you feel? Like what was that like, I guess?
I think at the time when I learned, I hadn't even like processed it. It was just sort of a realization like, oh, like it was Libby. And then for a while after, it was just kind of like, well, I don't know how to even go about thinking about this.
Shock.
It was shocked.
We talk about that a lot. That's kind of what we were all just like, what just happened? Yeah.
And like, missing, what was it? Almost a day of, missing almost 24 hours of my memory, really kind of threw everything out of alignment and made everything cattywampus. And I had no idea what was happening basically. And suddenly I had woken up on the couch in the dark with my parents talking near me and my sister was gone. So I didn't even have time to recognize basically that like the gravity of what had happened until days later. But yeah, so. Yeah.
So just to fill people in on what Max doesn't remember and what had actually happened was, and you don't care if I...
No.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't think so, but just double checking. So, and I've talked about this before, when the accident happened, so Max went through a stop sign at that intersection. They got hit by the truck. Libby died instantly. Max was injured, so he was kind of thrown around. And hit his head pretty badly. So when his dad when we arrived at the scene, his dad was already there, and all that I knew was that Max had a head injury. They had gotten him out of the car, but they had no idea like what the extent of the damage was or like how bad he was. Before I got there, he had been taken in the ambulance to the hospital. And so when we left the accident scene, we went right to the hospital to check on Max and make sure that he was okay. And he was still the weirdest thing I think I've ever experienced. His brain was on a 30-second delay. So every 30 seconds, he would forget everything that was said to him. And we had to start over again. It was the most bizarre thing. If you've ever watched 50 First Dates, there is a character, I think it's 10 Second Tom, where he remembers stuff for 10 seconds and then starts over. Hi, I'm Tom. That is exactly how it was, which as a parent, like at first was absolutely terrifying. And they kept telling us that you would be okay. Right. Like, you'll be okay. It's actually pretty common. Like, it's not that weird. We're not that worried about it. It's like the brain's way of protecting itself. Mm-hmm. But it was like every 30 seconds, we started off all serious, like we'd say, because you'd wake up and you'd be like, why am I in the hospital? And you like got blood all over the place and you were scared, understandably.
I get nervous even thinking about the possibility of having to go to the hospital.
So it was really hard because...
Sorry, that was before the accident. Yeah. I've always been terrified of the idea of having to go to the hospital.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No, that's okay. You are. So yeah, we get there and at first we'd be like, he would wake up scared, or like his brain would reset and he'd start out, where am I? What happened? Whatever. And then we would start to explain what happened and that, he was in an accident. And sometimes you asked about Libby, because you would say, like, which is, as a mom, was like heartbreaking, because that was one of the first things you asked was, is Libby okay? And then we'd have to say, Libby didn't make it. And you'd just see your face like fall, and you'd be so upset. And then it would just disappear and you would forget. And then it would start again, and he'd look around and be like, why am I here? Why am I in the hospital? And it was like, oh my, it was so weird. So we kept for like a bunch of times just retelling you over and over again what had happened. And then eventually we just stopped.
Yeah.
Because it was hurting us more than anything. Like, having to say, like, your sister died 10 million times in a row got to be a little exhausting.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So then it got to the point where, like, after a couple hours of the same thing, we would just start joking around, like, where am I? Why am I here? What happened? Don't worry, you'll forget in 30 seconds anyway. And you'd be like, okay. So yeah, but it was interesting to see what came out of your mouth. And then you always wanted to. The other thing you kept asking was for us to call Hazel and let Hazel know what had happened. So yeah, it was bizarre. And then they actually let us take Max home with his brain like that. So he doesn't remember like getting home, we put him on the sofa because we wanted him out, in the open. We had to watch because he had a like terrible concussion. So we had to keep an eye on him. Make sure he didn't fall asleep for too long, that kind of stuff. And it lasted for quite a long time with that 30-second thing, which was really weird. And then it just sort of stopped. And that,
that was probably when I woke up.
I'm sure that's probably when that happened. And yeah, it was so strange. Anyway, okay, so that was the story of what happened to Max that he does not remember any of the stuff that was in between there. So let me ask, as far as healing, I guess let me start with how are you doing? That's a very broad, general question, but just now that we are where we are, how would you say you're doing? Because that's what everyone asks me, like, how is Max doing? Is he okay?
I'm okay. We talked about this before we even started the stream, that it's going to be weird to really talk about it, because I'm fine. Like I said, earlier, the fact that I don't remember anything probably is helping tremendously with my recovery. Not that I didn't really have, other than the stitches, like I didn't have to recover really. It was just kind of, I woke up one day and it was all sad, and then eventually like my recovery process was more like learning how to be that like a better support for my parents, because as much as she was my sister, like again, I don't remember anything, and I can't even fathom the depth of losing a child. So while again she was my sister and I miss her constantly, but I don't think that I can comprehend the connection that my parents felt. So like I said, my recovery process is more just learning how to be a good support, and once I learned about it, like much like nearly everything in my life, I just kind of had to roll with it and learn to live with it pretty quickly. So yeah.
You did. We did definitely do some things that I think help. Max's personality definitely plays a huge factor. He has always been like the most laid back, sweetest, like go with the flow, like never a problem. Like it's just Max. We always said like Max just kind of floats through life, just like okay, well, whatever happens, which is an amazing attitude. I love that about you. But you did have a recovery. I mean, you had a concussion. You had to stop going to school. like I feel like you're selling yourself short. Like he was in college and was not allowed to go back because of his head injury. So you had to take the rest of the semester off, right?
No, I did. So I did eventually go back. I could have gone back earlier. I think I didn't want to really for a while. But yeah, I took a large portion of the semester off. By the time I got back, like I talked to my teacher. He basically said like, look, like these are 2 classes you need to just drop because there's no way for you to make them up. You'll have to do them next year. And I did. I did everything the next year, and I graduated within 2 years like I was supposed to. So.
Yeah, which is like, I hope you give yourself credit for that. Like, because he piled on the extra classes that he missed in addition to the ones that he had to take in order to graduate, so that he could still graduate on time, which was awesome. Like, we're so proud of you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about your counselor. So right away, one of the best things we did is the emergency people that we were dealing with and the police and that kind of stuff, they directed us immediately to a trauma counselor for Max. And so like, you need to get him to this trauma counselor, which we did, like almost, I mean, as soon as you were like even remotely healthy, we took you there. And do you feel like that helped?
Oh my God. Yeah. I think we have a question down the line that I can answer now.
There's no order.
No, I know. Yeah, but like
these are just ideas of things to talk about.
My recommendation for first steps as soon as you are experiencing grief is take time to heal. Get into a headspace where you can go somewhere other than yourself and feel okay and function, which is going to be different for everyone, obviously. Like, take the time that you need. But as soon as you are ready, talk to a therapist. Find a therapist. And even if you go to a therapist and you don't feel like it's helping, try your best to find another therapist. I have been extremely lucky in that every therapist I've ever had, whether it was for this or it was for other things before this, has been wonderful. Like, absolutely amazing. They've helped every time. And while I only went to that, I don't remember her name, unfortunately, but I only went to her maybe 4 times. The first 3 were mandatory, but they were recommended, and then the 4th time was just because I liked her so much. And then after the 4th time, I kind of realized, like, I'm good now, like it not.
I know what you mean.
She was so
you talked
helpful.
It out.
Yeah, I talked it out. She was so helpful. She was so knowledgeable. She was great. But yeah, like that's my first recommendation is always just talk to a therapist. It's so helpful. And make sure you find the right therapist, because that makes a world of difference.
Important. Yeah, it does. It absolutely does.
Knowledgeable old ladies. It seems to be the running thread, is that every awesome therapist I've ever had, which is all of them, I think, has been a knowledgeable old lady. So yeah.
Cool. Kind of along. So you did the therapy. Would you say there's anything else that helped you to deal with things kind of early on?
A great support system. I have my parents, have my partner, even my friends. Like, they weren't a part of the recovery process all that much, but even then they were supportive, but we were actually talking about this again. The thing that I think did a really good job in helping me was that my parents got way ahead of the train on the the guilt side of things. Because had it gone any different, I think it would have been very plausible that I would have been just like racked with guilt. And I still feel guilty occasionally, but it's so much less than I think it could have been, because my parents like got way ahead of it and immediately started telling me.
What do you mean? Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So yeah, you like
I know, but for people who don't know.
Yeah. Pretty much as soon as I woke up and started talking about it with coherence and actually could remember things for more than 30 seconds, my parents were telling me that it wasn't my fault, that it was an accident, and that it could have happened to anyone. And, you know, I don't know. Again, I don't know what happened. So unless we watch the police tapes, like I don't know whether it was actually my fault for just pulling out of a stop, or if it was that the car died in the middle of the road, whatever it was. I don't feel I feel responsible, but I don't feel guilty for it because it was an accident. And again, it could have happened to anyone. So, yeah.
I'm glad that helped.
It did. Yeah, seriously, it helped a lot.
That's one of the things your dad and I were talking about when he was on the show, was that because of your personality and how careful you were with your car and with driving or whatever, it was very easy to do that because of who you are. Yeah. So
that's another thing. That was one of the first things the police said, was just that when I talked to them the one time, they said, like, you were great with your car. It had full tank of gas, everything. Like I kept as good of care of it as I possibly could. So
yeah, because I think a lot of people that hear that automatically would be like, oh, teenage driver, you know, or like, why would you let your 10-year-old ride with your 18-year-old? It never even crossed our minds for a hot second to not allow. Max was a more careful driver than either of us, like than more people that I know. So yeah, didn't cross our minds for a second to not. And we always said, even with that happening, we would put someone else in the car with you again the next day. Like, it was an accident. It just sucks. It's just a shitty thing that happened. So we have a comment here. So Denise says, I've experienced trauma brain, but not to that extent. Yeah, it was crazy, Denise. Thank you both for this live chat. I agree completely with getting a therapist. Yes, definitely. They all help. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for commenting. And you are very welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's see. So chugging it down. You like that stuff? Okay.
It got cold.
Oh yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Libby.
Looking forward to it.
We don't have to.
No, if something is off limits, I'll let you know.
Okay, sounds good.
Same with you guys. If you ever have questions, I'm happy to answer them, unless they're rude, obviously.
Don't be rude. Yeah. So let's just start with what are some of your favorite memories of your sister?
Probably one of my favorite memories of her, and I'm willing to bet money that Dad also mentioned this if you asked him the same question. I'm sure she didn't like the memory very much, but my dad loved to take us on hikes a lot, or even just walks on river trails, and we actually we live closer to the trail that I'm mentioning. It's near a river, and there was a very steep boat launch happened to be on the trailhead. So Libby, in her infinite wisdom, decided that she would run basically full speed down that steep boat launch. And it took my dad and I standing there about 3 seconds to say, she's not stopping, is she? And about 2 seconds later, she was face first in the mud at the bottom of the boat launch. And when she came back up, she was obviously upset, and we were trying our best to not lose our stuff. But what really punctuated the entire debacle is that her shirt said "best day ever" on it. So
that was like her catchphrase. She loved "best day ever."
It was truly
everything was the best thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a picture of her somewhere floating around.
Yes.
With like mud, her best day ever, and she's like tear stained, all like with mud, with the shirt saying "best day ever." That is a good one.
Beyond that, I have a few, fragmented memories of just like little moments. But I mean, she was just a ball of sunshine the entire time I knew her. There was not a single thing that could ruin her day. Basically, like it was truly insane the amount of optimism and love that she had for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I the other one I remember specifically is I have a plush frog in my room that my partner, actually, hi Hazel, my partner won at Hershey Park the last time that we all visited with my dad. Thank you, Valerie.
Put Valerie's up. So your dad said best day ever, yeah. Best day ever. And Valerie says you seem like such a great big brother.
I appreciate that. I think I could have been better, but I mean that's just me.
You always think in hindsight, like I could have done more, you know. But there was a very large age difference. There was an 8, almost 9 year.
Like I did. So
there's at least an 8-year difference in age. So they were kind of, you know, in very different places.
Yeah,
but
we honestly didn't have a lot of common. We were very different people.
Yeah.
But she was still
a
ball of sunshine.
You were so like just nice to her. Like you were, yeah. I have memories of you guys being like out in the backyard shooting bow and arrow together, and you like going for walks and you picking her up and holding her and like showing her things, you know, in the trees and whatever. And yeah. You're a very good big brother.
I appreciate that.
She loves
to finish my story.
I'm sorry.
No, that's my fault. To finish my story about the frog plush, basically my partner Hazel, at the last time that the four of us, my dad, Libby, my partner, and I visited Hershey Park, which was years ago, my partner won a plush frog and gave it to Libby. And despite Libby's insistence, you know, she finally took it. And then at the end of the day, Libby gave the frog back to Hazel right before I think they got out of the car to go back to their house. So then, you know, after Libby passed, Hazel gave me back the frog, and now it's on a shelf I have that has a bunch of artifacts from, you know, my relationship with Libby. So
yeah. Well, and that's something to talk about too. That's one of the ways that you keep her memory close. Yeah. And kind of honor her in that way. Anything else you can think of? When you summed her up, brave sunshine.
Oh my God. Yeah. I always liked, well, as much as it at the time begrudged me, I miss when the days that we didn't go to my dad's house, when I had to pick her up from dance, I would walk on the trail because we used to live so close to it. Yeah. I would just walk on the trail down to it and pick her up, and then we'd walk home. And it was always really, really.
As Libby's teacher, Libby always spoke very happily about you, Max. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I miss walking home with her from dance, even though at the time I was probably like, oh, I have to walk all the way over there and get her. But now I miss being able to just talk to her. She was so nice all the time.
It is funny with grief how like it. Sometimes you just miss those little things that you had no idea in the moment were so special, and then once you don't have them anymore, it's like, oh,
yeah, it's
like I really should have appreciated that more.
Everyone always says it. It's everything is so much nicer in the past, you know.
Yeah.
After it's over, you never realize how good something is until it's gone. So
that is very, very true. Would you say that this experience has like changed your outlook on life at all? How you look at things, or does it feel pretty much the same? I said you've always had kind of like a go with the flow attitude. So
yeah, it hasn't changed a thing really. I mean, I've always kind of been aware that eventually everything is going to be gone. So I'd rather, you know, appreciate things while I have them and try to be as friendly as I possibly can to the people that I love. And while I may not have always lived by that, especially when I was younger, I think this experience has especially like strengthened that I really want to live in the moment with the people that I love, and really, really try to appreciate everything I have with them before it's too late, basically. So
Very nice. So what are you, people ask me kind of like what you're up to at this point. So since the accident happened, what, I don't want you to like brag about yourself, but basically brag about yourself or else I can do it. So like, what have you accomplished?
Well, okay. So
honestly, because I just find it, and I think other people, like you might not realize it, but it's inspiring for other people that you have managed to do such a great job with your life, honestly, after such a horrific experience.
I mean, I appreciate that I'm a point of inspiration. Yeah, I mean, I immediately after I eventually went back to college, eventually graduated college. That last semester was something, but yeah, I managed to make it through. And now I have a job in my career. I still am together with my partner. Still hang out regularly with my parents. Even not as much as any of us would like, honestly, but you know, still see you around. And yeah, I honestly just, I mean, nothing really has been like too crazy to me, at least. Like I've not noticed anything too crazy other than just, you know, living in a different house and having a full on adult job.
Like, I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is so inspirational for someone, you know, of your age to have continued on and graduated and gotten a job, you know, in your field and be like an adult, fully functioning, mentally healthy adult.
That's... Well, I mean, to be a little like, I don't know what the word is, but I wouldn't. I've never thought about this way, but I wouldn't want to like just wallow, you know. Like I think that would be, and I've witnessed it occasionally with some people that I've been around. Like one of the things that I absolutely just could not do is wallow in my own like, you know, grief and shame, and I would much rather just take it in and accept it, and as much as it sucks, like just keep moving forward, so that I don't have, you know, the rest of my life like permanently scarred or altered by such a, you know, awful time. And like I, in a more literal sense, I have 2 scars from the event that I could have probably gotten taken care of, but I'd rather have the reminder.
You said you didn't, actually. I was just going to bring that up. So
what?
Max had...
Oh, yeah.
I was specifically thinking of the one on your eyebrow that you...
It's actually under my eyebrow.
Yeah.
I can't really... I mean, I could put my entire face in
the No, it's okay. You don't have to. Yeah. But it was much more pronounced after the accident, and they had wanted to prescribe stuff for you to put on it that would make it go away, and you said no, that you didn't want it to go away.
Yeah. It's...
What was your thought process behind that?
You know, you guys got tattoos immediately after you all have. Everyone Libby. Got a different tattoo immediately after the situation, and I was preparing to get a tattoo, and I chose not to because I'm a coward and don't like needles. But you know, this is, I think, the scar that I have is sort of the same principle. It's a physical reminder of someone you love and then someone you can't see anymore. And as much as it might sound, I think some people, like, you know, if they had a different mindset, they could probably, if they had a scar and they kept it around, they could treat it as like a punishment. You know, like it would be a reminder of your guilt. And it's not for me. I would never treat it like that. But, you know, to me, it's a reminder of like basically everything that happened. And just every time I look in the mirror, I remember that I have the scar. it's a reminder of, like, love the people around you, because you don't know when you can't anymore. Um, you never know when you're gonna say I love you for the last time to someone, and I'd rather make every single one count. I love you, by the way.
Dang it! I never cry on these shows. All right, come here. I'm gonna. That was awesome. Thank you. No.
I broke the record.
You did. Yeah. Okay. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Comments and questions. So Valerie said, yes, it's all the little things. Yes, it is. And you have a great way of looking at life. Wish we could all do that. And good son. Yeah, the best, Valerie.
Thank
Seriously, the best. Amazing.
Give my best.
Love this kid to death. Okay, so talking about being a good son, because I'm trying to think now of questions that people have asked me. What was it like watching your dad and I go through all this?
Oh boy. It was hard. It's definitely, like, looking back now, it's probably the hardest part of that entire thing, is just, and I'm gonna say something that is gonna sound like I'm blaming you.
No, it's okay. Go for it. Go.
It's hard to have to be in the same room as your parent while they're sobbing. I think regardless of who you are, like, no one, I mean, in general, no one really wants to be around someone while they're having such a visceral emotion, but especially when it's your parent. Like, I had seen my parents cry. I'd seen my mom cry, sometimes before that. And I think I'd only seen my dad cry, like, sob, like, once in front of me my entire life before this happened. And every time it was just awful. Like, I hated having to see that. And, after this, like, they did their best to hide it, but there's only so much you can hide, and grief, at least as far as I've heard and seen, grief will catch you when you're not expecting it. So it would come out of nowhere. It would be from reminders that seem so innocuous, especially to me. Like, like, you guys see reminders of Libby and things that I wouldn't even think. And it, for a long time, it was tough, but it it got better, and they got better, and it's it's always, I got off track a little bit, but
that's okay. We because I always, as a mom, felt kind of guilty about that.
I can understand why.
Yeah, because it was like I would try to, like, not completely lose my shit in front of you, but I failed miserably on several occasions.
Mhm.
And I think it's just your personality too. Like, you have always been the, like, come here, give me a hug. Like, you're, Mom, do you need a hug? And you just sort of stepped into that role. And I was trying to be very careful of not making you be my support system, because you had just been through your own trauma. But it's impossible to be like that all the time. I mean, so
it's impossible to hang around people without making them part of your support system. And I don't think anyone, if you are going through a time like that, obviously, like, I think you should do your best to be conscientious of other people's feelings and how they might react to your feelings. And as much as it's obviously super duper hard to control your emotions, especially, again, one so visceral, it's okay to break down sometimes, and
absolutely,
and even if you need to just, like, take the time, calm down, and then come back to the person that you broke down in front of and just say, like, hey, I'm sorry that happened. Like, if they need it, then apologize. But if not, then like just don't try your best not to feel guilty about having support.
A normal human emotion.
Yeah. Like you're gonna be sad.
Yeah.
You're gonna probably feel sad around people that don't necessarily need your emotion, right? But 9 times out of 10, I think people are, especially those that are, a part of the web of those affected, as long as you're there to support them when they need it, they'll be there to support you.
It's a great way to look at it. Let's see. We have Valerie says, "Oh my gosh, I understand this. I lose it a lot in front of my other child and I feel so guilty." Yes, I did. I struggled with that a lot because I didn't want to like put that weight on him.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, sometimes it's just impossible. So, and sometimes, I mean, a couple of months down the road, you were like the only other quasi-adult person in the house. And sometimes, and sometimes I would need a hug, just to make sure I was doing all right. So I do appreciate that. Beautifully depressed. Good. I'm glad you were able to make it here. Beautifully depressed. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Let's see. The only other thing I can think of that somebody had asked how you feel about me doing all this stuff and like putting this story out there. You can be honest.
Yeah, I'm indifferent, honestly. Like, I don't.
It's like your life motto.
Yeah. I don't have strong feelings one way or another. I think, if it's helping her, then all the power to her. And I don't mind having my story shared as long as it's done, respectfully, what you've done. So, I think I'd have issue if I'm sure everyone would have an issue if someone were grieving and just decided that they were going to spend all their time talking to other people about how much it's this other person's fault. Like, that would suck. But, you don't do that as far as I'm aware.
No.
But, I don't mind even remotely. I'm glad that it's helping you. I'm glad that you can help so many other people because it really seems like you have such a strong following of people that really need the advice.
Thank you.
And I'm happy that you're able to do that for other people because, I think you're good at articulating feelings,
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? We're coming up on almost 50 minutes here, so.
Oh, wow.
Oh, Julianne says, "Love you both." Love you too, Julianne. Thank you. And your mom is awesome and so helpful. Thank you, Valerie. I don't know about that, but I try. I try. Does anyone have any other questions that you want to ask Max before we head out? Or is there anything else you wanted to
No, I don't think so.
talk about? I'm going to say thank you to Hazel, if you're still watching, Hazel, because Hazel was a humongous support for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Huge.
I would not be anywhere near where I am without them. So.
I don't think so either. So.
If you're still watching, thank you.
Hazel rocks. Thank you.
Later.
I love you too, Hazel. All right. Oh, it doesn't look like we have any other questions that I can see.
Okay.
Nope. Oh, finally we got a heart from Hazel. Thanks, Hazel. All right, I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right, done with did you drink all of your?
I did, yeah. I drank it earlier because I got cold.
I didn't drink enough of mine. I still have much left. All right.
The entire show.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Max said he was always welcome to come back. So if you do think of any questions, you can ask me, and then I can always do like a follow-up and we can talk about stuff. But yeah. Done.
I'm sure that sounded good on the mic.
It did. It was probably really loud.
I don't know if I could say this, but look forward to the collab between her, myself, and my dad.
Oh.
Might be coming in the pipeline. We'll see. I just
With the
made you so much
collaboration?
work. Yeah.
Oh, so you want all three of us on here at
Yeah,
once?
I mean, honestly, I think it'd be a good
Sure, we
time
can
to.
do that. All right.
You don't have to. That's fair.
I'm
That's
totally
something
happy
that
to
I
do
would
that.
love to do.
Upcoming with all three of us in my tiny house.
TBD.
All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Mwah. Sending love and hugs as always, and we will see you possibly next Sunday? Question mark because of Thanksgiving stuff, but I think we're good for next Sunday. And yeah, we'll see you later. Thank you for tuning in. Bye, guys.